guys, so I recently did a video telling you all about my top 10 favourite big books, aka books over 500 pages. And I enjoyed filming that, so thought I would go to the other extreme and do a video all about my top 10 books that are 50 pages and under. Yes, I know, that is like incredibly small, and no, they're not all children's books. I actually didn't find it terribly difficult to find 10 books that I would highly recommend that are 50 pages or under, from a wide variety of genres, some which are illustrated, some which are not, some which are non-fiction, some which are fiction, and I'm really excited to share them with you all. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the books. First up is Eric by Shaun Tan. This is a short illustrated work, so Shaun Tan is an illustrator and a graphic novelist whose artwork is stunning. He has even done works which are entirely absent of words, so books that are purely illustrated and you follow the story and learn the story via the illustrations without words. I haven't actually read his most famous graphic novel, which is The Arrival. However, I adored Eric. This is a tiny little book that I was gifted by my friend Jen, and it does have some words, and it's about this little creature that almost looks like a ball of soot. It reminds me a little bit of the little soot creatures from Studio Ghibli films, but that's besides the point. And this little creature has come to stay with a family, and it's about this family learning from this little creature, sharing their lives with this little creature, and just sort of like the differences in the way that they can come together. It's so short, it's so cute, with such a lovely message and beautiful illustrations. I then have a recommendation for essentially a series, because most of the books in this series will come under 50 pages, and if not, are only a few pages over that, and those are the Asterix graphic novels. So conveniently, the first graphic novel in this series is under 50 pages, so I'm going to mention that to you, but like I said, you can read any of these books, and I have to say I read these out of order when I was a kid, and have subsequently reread them just as I feel like, but it's always still easy to start with at the beginning if that's what you would like. So that book is simply Asterix the Gaul. So these are French comic book graphic novels that have been around for decades. It's an incredibly popular series. It's been adapted into television and film. It has been translated into various different languages because naturally it is first written in French, and it is set during the time of Julius Caesar, when the Gauls are falling to Rome and Roman expansion, except for one small Gaulish village where our protagonist Asterix and his friend Obelix live, and they have this magic potion that gives them this incredible strength and means that they have never yet fallen to the Romans, and it's about their constant interactions with the Romans and other cultures. They travel the world, they get embroiled in mysteries and adventures, and they are so funny. Such classics, would highly recommend. Moving on to something that isn't a graphic work, we have Waiting on a Bright Moon by Jai Yang. This is a story, a novelette. I'm never sure what the correct categorization of it is, but it is a science fiction piece of literature, and it is absolutely stunning. The author's writing is just beautiful. This is just an example of beautiful writing, and I think that's something I do look for in shorter works that are purely prose, because it's difficult to explore like the meat of a long story, so often it's the writing that grabs me. And in this story, we follow two women on a spaceship in a futuristic world who develop a bond between one another. It is a female-female romance, and their culture means that women often bond and communicate through this song that helps them send messages across space, and this is something that is used by this sort of like space empire. However, there are perhaps those that would like to question the status quo, and our protagonist gets drawn into this through her relationship with a new woman. It is just beautifully written. It is a book that completely convinced me I need to read more by this author, and very much plan on doing so in 2019. I thought it was beautiful, really creative and immersive. In a similar vein, I would also like to recommend The Terracotta Bride by Zen Cho. This is also a short work, but in more of the fantasy genre or the paranormal genre. It is set in the afterworld. Based on Chinese culture and superstition surrounding the dead, our protagonist is a young girl who has died and has subsequently gone to the afterworld, and has been married in the afterworld to a wealthy man or ghost, who is then sent a terracotta bride by his family. So this terracotta bride is not someone who is a living person on earth, but instead is a sort of votive that was sacrificed to the dead ancestor. and takes on a kind of like being in the afterworld. So this young girl is sort of like co-wife with this terracotta bride, and it's about her relationship with the terracotta bride and the relationship they develop, and very much her finding herself. There's also like again themes of female romance, and but it is mainly about our protagonist sort of like kind of finding an inner strength even in the afterworld. I'd like to mention a piece of non-fiction next, and this comes in at exactly 50 pages, and that is Dark Days by James Baldwin. This is one of the Penguin mini modern classics. James Baldwin was a novelist and an essayist and a journalist during his lifetime in the 20th century. He wrote often on race in America and his experience of racism, but his novels cover like a vast array of topics. These essays though very much deal with kind of America, race divisions in America, the history of race in America, and how that had like sort of even like earlier periods to his lifetime have affected his life growing up in America. I think it's a fantastic introduction to James Baldwin's writing. I think it's a fantastic introduction to sort of prejudice in 20th century America, and it's incredibly digestible and packs a punch for such a short little book. Next I'm going to mention a collection of poetry though, and that is When I Grow Up I Want to Be Mary Beard by Megan Beach. This is one of my favourite collections of poetry. I love Megan Beach's poetry. Both her collections are fabulous, and this is the shorter of the two, so it's the one I'm going to mention here. And this one I initially read because of the title. A friend of mine got it for me for a present, my friend Nicola. And because obviously I love Mary Beard because I'm a classicist, and it's so nice to see prominent women in the classics in the media. So it was so funky to see a poetry collection with this title, and the title poem is brilliant. I will never forget the opening lines, which are when I grow up I want to be Mary Beard, a classy classic classicist intellectually revered. However, the collection then goes on to sort of explore the modern experiences of women online, feminism in the digital age, kind of like the abuse that women face on a daily basis via social media and the internet, but also how you can sort of like band together and find like like-minded people, and it is such an empowering collection. I love it. Another collection of poetry that comes under 50 pages, however, is the Little Book of Vegan Poems by Benjamin Zephaniah. The title pretty much gives this one away. It is poems about veganism. Now, I'm not actually vegan, I'm a vegetarian, although I would say I eat minimum like animal byproducts, but that's not the point. I can't call myself a vegan. However, I still find a lot of the messages, the morals, the ideas in this book very relatable, things that I very much agree with. I think it's like such a fun, unique, kind of punchy way to explore kind of animal rights, which is something I do care about and I do think are important. I also just generally love Benjamin Zephaniah's poetry. It has such a fantastic rhythm and beat to it. He has been one of my favourite poets since I was a child. His poem about turkeys at Christmas, which I would highly recommend looking up on YouTube because you can watch him performing it, is brilliant. It's not in this collection, but it's on a similar theme, and I heard that when I was a kid, and it is definitely one of my favourite poems of all time, and I think that gives you a sense of what you're in store for from the Little Book of Vegan Poems. And my next work is actually also kind of a collection of poetry. In fact, it is a collection of poetry, but it's a collection of stories told through poems, and that is Revolting Rhymes by Roald Dahl. So these are Roald Dahl's retellings of classic fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood and Cinderella via the medium of rhyme. So they're all only like a few pages long, and they are absolutely brilliant. They are so dark, just like Roald Dahl's children writing is in general. It doesn't shy away from the dark, disturbing sides of life, the little gruesome sides of life, and he really kind of ups the ante and the gruesomeness and the hilarity in these fairy tales. I absolutely loved them as a child, and I think even if you're an adult you will enjoy reading these. We only have two more works to go though, and the next one is another graphic work, and that is The Snow Queen and Other Stories by Isabel Greenberg. So Isabel Greenberg has written a few hefty, full-sized graphic novels that she's written and illustrated, as well as some she's co-authored with her sister. This, however, is a much more like pamphlet, comic book style graphic novel that collects together a couple of Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales illustrated in Isabel Greenberg's style. And Isabel Greenberg is one of my favourite illustrators. I love all of her work. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Her full-size work is like so worth checking out, but this is obviously a really nice little introduction, a little quick read that really gives you a flavour for her style, and yeah, I think perfectly encapsulates the kind of magic and wonder and quirkiness of both her adaptations, her imagination and her illustration style. But lastly, another non-fiction book, and this one is also from the Penguin Mini Modern Classics range, and that is Letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King Jr. Another one that is pretty much given away from the title. It is a letter that Martin Luther King Jr. wrote during his time in Birmingham Jail. Martin Luther King wrote this work in response to white clergymen in America who were arguing that the fight for racial equality did not belong on the streets and instead belonged in the courtroom, which went against like Martin Luther King's ethos of sort of like getting out there, spreading this message, you know, very publicly starting a discussion and encouraging people to speak out about the prejudice that they faced in 20th century America. And he was arguing against that in his fabulous rhetoric, and the importance of like sort of like it being a public issue and fought on the streets and people getting out there and demonstrating and all of that fantastic stuff. So naturally Martin Luther King is well renowned for being a phenomenal writer, speech writer. This very much embodies this, and in this you will also find the 3 dimensions of complete life, which is a sermon that Martin Luther King Jr. wrote himself and delivered. So you get a nice flavour for Martin Luther King's writing, but very much also speech writing, because he was a fantastic speaker, as we all know. But those are my recommendations for books under 50 pages. I think I may have cheated and 2 of these books are 51 pages, but I don't feel guilty. I still think they are incredibly quick, fun, punchy reads that you can get a lot from in a short space of time. So I'd love to hear from you if you have more recommendations of works of literature, whether graphic or prose or poetry, that you would recommend and come around or under 50 pages. Do leave them in the comments down below, but until next time, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!